The Brothers Karamazov, Book 4, Chapter 3. With the compressed way that Dostoevsky tells the story, we need to remember that the events of Book 2 happened yesterday morning, the events of Book 3 happened yesterday evening, and the events of Book 4 thus far have just happened this morning. So Alyosha is awakened early to hear the last words, the Christian, selfless, humble teachings of Father Zosima. He leaves that bedside and goes to the bedside of Fyodor in the next chapter, chapter 2, to hear the opposite of Zosima's teaching, the self-centered, dramatic, suspicious, believing the worst possible interpretation on his other son's actions. And so with that contrast, Alyosha leaves his father's house. So here he is in an alley, and he comes upon a group of boys. And if it's the first time reading this book, or even the second time, this really seems like a strange chapter. It's hard to see how it belongs in the book, what it really contributes. I remember being perplexed the first time I read the book if I had missed something. What is this chapter doing in here? And then upon rereading it, maybe the second or third time, I noticed that the narrator even mentions that it is a seemingly insignificant event. And so the narrator winks at us and acknowledges that this seems like an insignificant event and a chapter that doesn't fit in much. Now, as you read the rest of this book, the rest of the Book 4, it becomes immediately evident how this chapter does connect to future events as far as plot. But the question still needs to be asked, what does this chapter mean? So as far as plot, Alyosha leaves his father's house after having left the monastery even earlier, and now he's on his way to an errand that we'll see in the next chapter, a conversation that we'll see in the next chapter. And on the way, he sees a group of boys. And he begins to talk to those group of boys like a good religious figure wants to encourage the next generation, Alyosha, the cool youth pastor. And so he begins a conversation with the boys. And as he's talking about the proper way to wear a backpack, in flying in Alyosha's group of 6 boys talking to him, in comes flying a stone right by Alyosha, and it hits one of the boys. The boys begin to get angry, and they start to tell the boy who was hit by the stone to throw the stone back, and he doesn't need any encouragement. He's already firing, and so in a very Cobra Kai kind of way, the 6 boys take on the one boy. The one boy continues to fire rocks at the 6. He's not deterred even when he's hit. And Alyosha can't believe the crazy scene he's just happened upon. And so what does he do? He goes over and he tries to protect the one by throwing his own body in front of the harm. The boys remind Alyosha that he's the reason for the stone attack because he's Karamazov. And the boys also warn Alyosha, hey, it looks like in the traditional way of reading a short story like this, you would just assume that the 6 boys are the bullies, but no, he's actually the instigator, not only in this chapter, but previously he stabbed one of them with a penknife. And so this solitary boy, though he's solitary and greatly outnumbered, he's actually the aggressor. He's the one who is the ball of anger. So taking advantage of Alyosha shielding him from the array of rocks of the 6 boys, the one original stone thrower, he runs away. Alyosha tries to seek after him, and the boys even warn him, listen, he's not going to relent. He doesn't care that you're a religious figure, and he doesn't care that you're an adult. Stay away from him. So Alyosha goes over to the boy to figure out what is going on. What in the world could have possessed this boy to open such a violent and really stupid attack on an adult and 6 boys his age? trying to reason, trying to be compassionate and tender and loving toward this boy, Alyosha comes close physically, and the boy bites his finger, severely draws blood, and as we'll see, as the title of the next couple of chapters, lacerates Alyosha's finger. And how does Alyosha respond? He withdraws his finger, and he doesn't respond in anger. He doesn't lash out or say, "Don't you know who I am?" or "I'm your elder, respect your elder." No, Alyosha asks, "What did I do to you? Because surely you wouldn't behave like this unless I deserved it." That's basically the plot of chapter 3 of book 4. Now, what does it mean? I think Alyosha is doing the very thing that in book 2 Zosima told him, but it's repeated here in chapter 1 of book 4, which is, you, Alyosha, you do not belong in this monastery. You have good works to do outside of the monastery. And so this chapter is a living, breathing visual aid. It's an example of the good that Alyosha can do. The good that Alyosha is capable of, the Christian love that he can give, that he can actively participate in, is not for his family alone, although it is for his family first, foremost, and chiefly. But Alyosha can do good in the world by intervening in this squabble between junior high age boys. And I think I don't think I'm overreading the story. I think if I push this interpretation really far and made some super significant point about it, I think I might be overreading. But I don't think it's overreading to say that I think Alyosha is acting as a bit of a Christ figure, as the hero in this book, and the one who would be a greater hero in the second volume that never came to be. I think Alyosha is being a Christ figure, because what is the Christ? The Christ is one who takes, though he is innocent, he absorbs the wrath so that the innocent will not suffer. And so while this boy is not innocent, Alyosha takes the stones of the 6 boys, and he takes the bite of the very one who he's trying to save. And I think that's the most Christological part. The last 3 paragraphs of this chapter is that he absorbs the anger and the biting, even to the point of blood, of the very one that he came to save, the very one that he put his body in front of the wrath of the other boys. And he endures all that in order to save this little boy to the point of blood. And then not only as a Christ picture, but as a embodier of Zosima's teaching. So Zosima's teaching, again, not to belabor this point, is a rule of simplicity and a Christian life based around 2 ideas. Idea number 1, an honesty with oneself, leading to a love of everything and everyone in the universe. And so the contrast couldn't be more clear. In just the previous chapter, his father Fyodor attributes the worst possible interpretation to both Ivan and Dmitri's actions. And there's not a lot of substance to the accusations that Fyodor makes against Ivan. And in fact, since Fyodor cannot be honest with himself about his own character, since he is a wretch, he attributes wretchedness to everyone else. But Alyosha, being pure, being holy, being Christ-like, being honest with himself, he can only attribute good to others. And so even after being bitten undeservedly, even after absorbing the bites and the even bleeding for this boy, still Alyosha does not blame the boy, rather he blames himself, perfectly embodying the theology, the teaching, the last words that we saw in chapter 1 of book 4 of Zosima, that we're all connected strangely, and that each of us must take on ourselves the sins of the world. Here is Alyosha, not in a monastery saying that with other holy people, but here he is in the streets, in the real world of suffering, where boys are getting bullied, or boys are bullies. Here's Alyosha doing good in the world, embodying and living out the Christian faith as taught by Zosima, and I think in a very small way, picturing Christ as he seeks to absorb the wrath and take the pain of those he came to save, only to be given actually more pain by the very ones he came to save.